All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, good night, depending on what part of the world you're in. I'm Peter Winzer. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Journal of Lightwave Technology, and we have this Ustream session to talk about the journal, but also about photonics in general, about how to get involved with volunteer work within the community, any question that's on your mind. You can ask questions by typing them in the interface online, and I'll see them and I can then address them as we go along. So let's start by just reviewing what is GLT, because for those of you who are not so familiar, I would like to review the history of GLT a little bit. And that's very intimately related with the Optical Fiber Communications Conference, OFC. In fact, the first OFC took place in 1975, and by 1980 it was clear that the field was really taking off. So by then OFC had about 150 submissions. Today OFC has well over 1,000, so we have a factor of 10 growth in submissions here. And when OFC took off, it was really clear that a journal was needed to capture the content of OFC in full-length archival papers. Now, there was one person back then, Tom Lorenzi, who took the initiative. He was with the Naval Research Labs and is now heavily involved still with OFC at OSA. And he took the initiative and first did special issues in the Journal of Quantum Electronics. So the IEEE Journal of Quantum Electronics ran special issues on optical communications in 1981 and then 1982. And these special issues were so, I hear that there's some echo going on. Let's try to put the volume down. All right, hope that's better now. So these issues were so well received that a new journal was founded, and that was the Journal of Lightwave Technology. And that was founded in 1983 with first, I think, 4 issues coming out per year, then going to an issue every 2 months. And today we are at another issue every 2 weeks. So you see how much this field has expanded and has caught on over these years. So when GLT was founded, it was from its very start a joint venture. It was not just one society, not even one society within the IEEE. In fact, GLT initially had 9 co-sponsoring IEEE societies, plus the Optical Society of America as an additional co-sponsor. So all these societies saw the value in fostering the field and promoting the field, and that's what they did. So today we are back to 7 co-sponsoring IEEE societies, plus OSA, and that's a very healthy relationship, and I think the journal is doing very well from that, addressing a wide range of authors and readers. GLT today has about 1,000 submissions a year, and about 50% roughly get accepted. So we are about 50% acceptance rate. And we publish about 4,500 pages a year. Our impact factor is in the 2.5 range. Not that this is the most important thing, at least not to me, but that's a metric that many people look at. I want to point out that our papers have very high citations. The best cited papers have well over 3,000 citations, and many papers are in the several hundred citation range. We also have tried, while keeping up this very high quality, that is very important to GLT, to have the extremely high quality, to shrink the time to publications. So our current average time from submission to first response, when you first hear back with the first decision, is 38 days, and that's a pretty good number, given that you also get extensive reviews from true experts in the field. Our editorial board is composed of about 30 real top stars in the field, and they make sure that each and every paper gets handled with the highest level of technical standards. That's really our goal, to keep the technical quality as high as possible while still accommodating you, of course, in your desire to publish rapidly. And that's we understand that this is important, and we are working very hard in getting the number even further down. And some other facts, the Journal of Lightwave Technology is an open access, hybrid open access journal. So what you can choose as an author is to either go the classical way, where you as an author only pay voluntary page charges of $110 a page, up to 7 pages. And these are voluntary charges, which we ask you and urge you to pay, but we can't force you, and many people don't. But that is the traditional model of publication, where the subscription pays for the publication. So essentially what happens is GLT paper goes on digital libraries, both on IEEE Explore and on OSA's Optics Infobase. And through the sales of these digital libraries, and also printed books to libraries, we can finance the journal. But for a few years, GLT now also has the open access option, where what you do is you pay, as an author, you pay a fee, and that's currently at $750 per paper, also up to 7 pages. And there is also discounts, like as IEEE Society, sponsoring society members, you only get to publish at $1,480 per paper. And those papers are, the 7-page paper length is actually much longer than other papers if you compare it on a per word count. Usually other journals that offer open access have less dense articles on their pages, so you get more content published within 7 GLT pages than you get, for example, within 7 pages of other open access journals. So you have the option as a GLT author, and many people use the option. So we have we have really a mixed authorship. Some people like to use the traditional model where subscribers have to pay, others use the open access model. Now, I said before that GLT has always been very closely related with OFC, both in its scope and in the people who are involved. It's always this joint venture between IEEE and OSA, and if you look at the past editors-in-chief of GLT, they are all very well-known figures in the community who have been very much associated with OFC as well. Starting with Tom Gilorenzi, then Donald Keck from Corning, Rod Alphaness from Bell Labs, Ellen Wilner from the University of Southern California, Connie Changhas-Nine from Berkeley, and now I am the editor-in-chief, and I'm also program chair of OFC next year. So you see this close connection between the conference and the journal. And that also, of course, manifests in the journal scope. So essentially, whatever can go to OFC can also go to GLT. That's sort of the short version of GLT's scope. Formally, we cover everything that is related to waveguides and application of guided wave technology in the optical regime. We do publish some terahertz papers as well, but mostly we're focused in the optical regime and look at applied research that has some potential for use in the industry. But it's not just communications, although OFC stands for optical fiber communications. It's really everything that is waveguide related. We have a lot of sensor applications, a lot of analog applications. So we do free space optics. We do have we do have substantial amount of papers that are outside the communications field. Lasers, a very important one. We have lots of fiber laser papers being submitted. For example, new fibers, photonic crystal fibers, other fiber structures for all kinds of applications, for high power lasers, all the way through communications. And then the classical communication theory work that is related to optics. So that is very important. There is communication theory work and communication work, information theory, all that kind of stuff that's not really related to optical communications, but some people still try to submit it to JLT. And here sometimes we have to make a hard cut and reject those papers as out of scope if they have nothing to do with our core interest of optical systems. So that's as far as the scope is concerned. We have, networks. I forgot to mention networks, of course, as one important aspect of the scope. Optical networks, not wireless networks, optical networks that use waveguide technology in the sense that they use fiber networks are also considered in scope for JLT, and we do get many submissions on networks as well. So that brings me to another topic, which is how do you publish in JLT? What's the life of a paper from manuscript submission all the way to publication? So, and that's sort of some insider knowledge that I'm sharing with you here. That's something that's typically not published anywhere, or you can't read up on it, but I think our process is transparent, should be transparent, so you absolutely have the right to know. And I also answer these questions regularly if people ask me by email. And by the way, that's an open invitation for all of you to feel free to send me email if you have any questions or concerns related to JLT, and I'll try my best to answer them. And many of these questions and suggestions actually make it into modifications of how we view JLT. So when you submit a paper, it's first checked for English quality and for pure stylistic layouts that you use, a JLT friendly template, or your figures are readable, your fonts are readable. That's done by JLT staff, Doug and Lisa, who are also on this chat. You process your paper. And once that's done, it's being assigned to the editor-in-chief, and what I do then is I look at the paper and again check for the quality of English, because we frequently get papers that are written in a way that you cannot understand them technically. I mean, we don't request that all the papers that you submit are spot on, no grammatical errors. Many of you and I myself, I'm not a native English speaker, so nobody can expect that we make no mistakes in our English. But we should try our best, and if possible, have some native English speaker be involved and proofread the paper. I mean, one thing is for sure, every co-author on a paper should have carefully read the paper. Otherwise, the person should not be a co-author. So if you are authoring a paper with whoever on the author list, please make sure that everybody really carefully reads that paper and make suggestions and corrections to it, because that's a co-author's responsibility, really. All right, so we then reject some papers and suggest services how you can improve the English if it really impedes a technical review process. So then the paper is essentially okay, so we pass it on to the next step, which is associate editor assignment. So we have about 30 associate editors, and each and every of them is really a top person in their field, and very well networked and knows the field very well. So what I try is I assign the paper to each and every, depending on the field, to each and every associate editor. Sometimes there are questions as to the scope or as to whether a paper really should go forward in a review. With some papers, it's just obvious that they have to be rejected because all reviews would turn out negative anyway. In that case, I have 3 deputy editors with the journal, and these deputy editors then together with me check the paper, and we decide how to go forward, who to assign it to, or whether to reject it immediately. Those deputy editors are Ioannis Tomkos, Fumio Koyama, and Mingjung Lee. And after the paper now has passed the editor-in-chief, the deputy editors, it's getting to the associate editors, and they then assign reviewers to the paper, typically 2 reviewers and sometimes more. And the reviewers then have a certain amount of time, typically like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, to review the paper. Obviously, we all rely on volunteers. Everybody is a volunteer. I'm a volunteer, the deputy editors are volunteers, the associate editor are volunteers, and the reviewers are volunteers. So we can't really force or push anybody to work faster. But we, of course, encourage everybody to be as quick as possible for your benefit, because as a reader, as an author, you want your paper out as fast as possible, and we fully understand and appreciate that, and we try our very best to accommodate that need for speed. All right, so now the paper is with the reviewers, and the reviewers typically provide their reviews within 2 or 3 weeks, and then it is up to the associate editor to make a decision. Now, it is very frequently, it's a very frequent misconception when authors receive the reviews back and say, well, wait a second, this guy recommended minor revisions and this reviewer recommended major revisions, so the paper should really be accepted with major revisions. I just want to make sure and be very clear about that this is not the case. The associate editor has the final say in what should happen with the paper, and the associate editor also has a very solid technical understanding, because what I said before, we only pick top people in their field as being associate editors. So even if you as an author get a paper back that where the reviews might suggest it could be modified or revised, but then the decision is reject, then this goes back to the associate editor. Of course, you can always come back and say, I don't understand this, can you please explain it to me, why is this paper rejected, shouldn't have been rejected, and then this is a rebuttal case, which we also get rather frequently, and we then deal with it within the editorial board. So rebuttals are first sent to the associate editor to defend his or her decision. Why was the paper rejected if the reviewers recommended, for example, 2 major revision reviews? And then the associate editor has to come up with technical arguments why this paper, why he made the decision to reject. But that's not all. Our 3 deputy editors will then also chime in and provide their own technical assessment on the paper, and based on that, we will then make a final decision saying, okay, this paper, the rejection stands, or yes, you are allowed reviews. And even if your paper is rejected, then you can always resubmit the paper. That's something that also happens once you take into account all the comments by the reviewers. And really, a revision process is meant to be something reasonably fast, something that can happen within 3-4 weeks. So if we have the feeling that there are so many changes needed to a paper that it cannot be revised within 3 or 4 weeks, then we just reject it, but not because it's hopeless, but just because we think you might need more time to really work that paper into something that meets GLT's high quality standards. So, and then once your paper is accepted, once the reviewers are satisfied, your paper is accepted, then you are asked to provide the final files, and then the paper goes online within 5 days or so. So once we have your final files in hand, you don't have to wait for the next issue to come out, but your paper will appear on IEEE Explore with all the citation, the digital object identifier, the DOI. So it is a fully citable, referenceable paper about 5 days after you submit your final files. And that's very nice, because you don't have to wait for the next print issue to actually come out to make your paper appear to your colleagues. All right, I think that's roughly how the paper handling process works. And if you have any questions, I would say just feel free to shoot. Here's a question. If a GLT paper is a resubmission, should it be noted by the author? Very good question. Yes. So when you resubmit a paper after it has been rejected, and not just after it has been rejected by GLT, also after it has been rejected by another journal. it frequently happens that authors submit first to Photonics technology letters, or the Photonics journal, or Optics Express, or Optics letters, and they get rejected, and then they just try at JLT. So we have a pretty sophisticated automatic system that catches resubmissions. So don't try to hide them from us, because we'll find them. So usually when you, as an author, you resubmit the paper to JLT, just be upfront about it. Just say in your cover letter, this paper got rejected by Optics Express, for example, and we would like to resubmit it to JLT. And make sure that in your cover letter you explain the reason why you are now resubmitting to JLT, together with a response to the original reviewers. Of course, the simplest case that also happens very often is just because, for example, the Journal of Quantum Electronics didn't think the paper was in scope, so I'm submitting it to JLT. So in that case, you didn't have any technical comments back from any reviewers, but what you have is this statement: the other journal didn't think it was in scope, so we are now trying with JLT and hope that's in scope there. But if you have technical reviews, then please put them in, paste them into your cover letter, address them as if it was a revision, and highlight the changes to your original manuscript from the other journal in your new submission to JLT. This is very important because, as I said before, we are all based on on volunteer reviewers, and we all rely on them. And if a reviewer gets the same paper again, just a pure resubmission to a different journal, just imagine how his mood or her mood will be in reviewing your paper. So, and it's very likely that the same person is going to be picked as reviewer. It happened to me as well many times. When I act as a reviewer for different journals, I get the paper, review it for journal X, and then it's rejected, and 5 weeks later I get the exact same paper to review for another journal, which doesn't make any sense, because then you just cut and paste the previous review and the decision will be the same. So always try to accommodate the reviewer's requests. In the end, we are all serving our customer base, which is our readership. And what our goal should be as an author is to make a paper as technically as strong as we possibly can, and every reviewer is one sample of our readership. So if a reviewer has problems with the paper and doesn't understand it, or is confused, doesn't see the points, thinks something's wrong, then it's very likely that 10 or 20 or 100 readers will have the same questions. So it's very important that you view, as an author, you view that review process as a chance to improve the paper. That's why we provide very detailed technical comments back to you. We don't usually say this paper cannot be accepted, no reason given, as some other journals do. We don't view it that way. We view this peer review process as a method to enhance the quality, to educate people, and to make sure that everybody gets better at writing papers and addressing technical issues. So please take these reviews seriously, and then everything should be all right. So is there any other question online? I don't see any question here. I could tell you a little bit about our special issues while you're thinking of questions to ask. And please, again, feel free, just type in your question, and I'll be happy to answer any question you might have. We run quite a few special issues in JLT, both conference related and topical. So for example, we have a special issue on optical fiber sensors, which is also a little bit related to the corresponding conference on optical fiber sensors, which is actually running right this week in Spain. And then the best papers from that conference are being picked by the guest editors, which are usually also related to the conference. They are the program chairs of the conference, and they will then act as guest editors and manage that special issue. So the special issue is not managed by the editor-in-chief at all. It's not managed by the associate editors, the regular associate editors of the journal. It's really managed by those guest editors. And they have to make a proposal, what special issue they want to run. and then that proposal gets approved or not approved by our steering and coordinating committees. As you can imagine, like every volunteer organization, GLT also has governing bodies that make these decisions upon our proposal, and then the special issue runs. Another very interesting one is on optical interconnects. We are thinking on doing one on biophotonics soon. We'll have one again on microwave photonics. So you see, we cover a diverse range of topics in these special issues, and yeah, that's those. And then we have also issues focused on conferences. And OFC is a very prominent one, and not surprising, as I've highlighted before, the close connection between OFC and GLT. So we have an annual special issue on OFC where we publish, or at least we invite, all post-deadline papers and all tutorials, and now also the Corning Student Paper Award winners, to publish a full-length paper in GLT. And that issue has been running for a long time, has been running very, very successfully, and we're running it again this year. And what we also will have this year is we will have a similar issue with ECOG, with the European Conference on Optical Communications, which has been sort of jumping around between different journals, but now for this year, ECOG has decided to work with GLT. And we're looking very much forward to having this special issue of ECOG published in GLT. All right, so let's see if there is any other question coming down the pipe. I don't see any, but I guess everybody can hear me right, because otherwise people would have protested by now. Okay. Here is a very interesting question. The question is, sorry, I probably missed it, but what is the average time to publication from the first submission date? So here, it's a good question, and it's not as easy to answer as you might think, because it depends on what you count as average time to publication. So what counts to me personally is when I first hear back from the journal with the first decision. Because then you have the revision process, which an author can take 3 weeks or maybe even 6 weeks, and that would add to the time to publication, really, until the paper is accepted. So what I view as the most important metric is the time from when you hit submit to when you get your first reviews back. This is really the response time, the time of the impulse response of the journal, if you want, and that is currently in the 38 days range. So I consider this pretty good. We brought it down significantly over the last year, and that is good. So within, say, a month and a half after submission, you should really hear back with the first technical review. Of course, that's an average value, and as with any statistic, there are outliers. And I have to confess that some of our papers are in the process for a very long time, many months. And that is usually because people decline reviews. So the associate editor invites a reviewer, and the reviewer just declines. And then the associate editor invites another reviewer, the reviewer again declines. And until you find good reviewers, it can take a long time for a certain paper. But the important thing is that we are not budging in terms of quality. That is our key thing with GLT. We will not make compromises in terms of speed if quality suffers. That is very important. So again, so it's about 38 days, and I hope this sort of answers the question. Now, then it depends, is your paper accepted right away, or how many revisions does it have? Some journals, for example, only allow a single minor revision step. They don't even allow major revisions. So in JLT, we don't view it as harsh, so we typically allow one major plus one minor revision. But sometimes we even allow a third revision if we really believe in the paper and there is just some minor things to be fixed up. But we really consider those important to be fixed up. Then we allow a third revision step. And then depending on how often the author sees it and how long the author takes, this can add up from first submission to final acceptance. It can add up easily to half a year if you have like 1.5 months with JLT, then another 3 or 4 weeks with the author, for example, and then you iterate back and forth. But in the spirit of high quality, that's what we do, and that's what we are not backing off. There's another question. If there are any future conferences that may be interested in JLT special issues, who should we contact or what should we do? So in general, very good question. In general, if you have an idea for a special issue associated with a conference or associated with a hot topic, then please do contact me. Just send me an email and we will discuss how to organize such a special issue. Obviously, you should be very well embedded in the field in order to be able to organize and to have the global view to organize an international special issue. So our special issues always have multiple co-guest editors, usually from one from North America, one from Asia, one from Europe, just to cover a wide range of expertise and also to attract authors from a wide range of areas. And then once we have settled that this is indeed a topic we want to do, we can do within our page budget. We also can't publish an arbitrary number of special issues. It has to be approved by steering and coordinating committees. So within our boundary conditions, we try to accommodate special issues, and we'll work with you to make it happen. So that's definitely possible. Another question. It seems to me that JLT prefers long length papers and it takes a long time for peer review. Is it right? So we do not have a page restriction, a lower limit for pages in JLT. In principle, you can publish a one-page paper in JLT if that's a really great piece of work. We do not look at that. Of course, if a paper is very short and you use the excuse, oh, I didn't have much more space to present the details, that might fly with a letters journal like PTL or Optics Letters, but it will not fly with JLT because you are allowed 7 pages for a normal paper. So you can't say that I couldn't present more details, but in principle there is no lower limit on the page count, and we do get quite a few 4-page papers into JLT, and they are successfully published. And but the length of the paper usually is not correlated with the review process. So it's really finding good reviewers. What absolutely helps in getting your speed to publication up is if you know of people in the field that would be good reviewers. But those people, of course, have to be unrelated to you. They can't be your professor, or they can't be part of the same group, research group. That's not possible. But if you know of true experts in the field that you would recommend as a reviewer, and you know that they would be interested in the paper, because that's when they most likely will accept to be a reviewer, then please, by all means, suggest them. There is a field when you submit a paper that asks you for reviewer suggestions, and I do encourage you to make use of that, to enter preferred reviewers. That speeds up the process. And at the same time, I encourage each and every one of you, when you personally get a review request, then please don't just decline it, because you are reviewers like anybody else, and as an author, you want the journal to find good reviewers fast. So when you get a review, it's also up to you how you react to reviews, right? I mean, if you are a slow reviewer, then you should expect reviewers for your papers to work slow too. it's all a volunteer community. It's a give and take. So I encourage each and every one of you to do reviews for journals and to try to do them in a speedy fashion. Let's see, many more questions now. We want to publish in GLT a theoretical paper on non-conventional fiber design for multimode and OEM. That's fine. I mean, to me, this sounds very much like in scope with GLT. So non-conventional stuff is totally fine, and we have many non-conventional papers in GLT. The only thing, it needs to be a solid paper in terms of its technical presentation, in terms of the science behind it, the engineering behind it, and the application to some extent behind it. So you need to be careful that you don't overstate things or overclaim that some particular area of engineering has an application in a particular field, but then it really doesn't, right? I mean, there's good work going on just because it's really nice science, but then you should just sell it as nice science and not as something that will change the world tomorrow, okay? Being honest in technical writing is always a good strategy. Overselling can backfire very, very quickly. So if you do good technical work, have solid results, present them in a nice way, and don't oversell them, but sell them as what they are, then I think you are off to a good start with having an accepted GLT paper. So let's see. There are many more questions. Has GLT considered double-blind review process? So I know that OFC, for example, has introduced a double-blind review process. For those of you who don't know what that is, when a paper is submitted to GLT and then sent to the reviewers will know who the authors are, because the author block, the author names, just appears as you submit them. And the double-blind review means that the author block is blanked out when the paper goes to the reviewer. This has been done at OFC, and I think has been done very successfully so. We have not considered it at GLT yet. It's a very good suggestion. We could try to take it up. It's certainly worth considering. So good suggestion. I will discuss it within the editorial board, what the general feeling about double-blind review for journals is. It has pros and cons as always, but I will definitely take it up. Very good suggestion, AEA S123, whoever you are. Thank you very much. Okay. Another question. GLT papers average 7 pages in length, and sub to EPUB time is on par. Yeah. Yes. So that's actually another question. That's more a comment. Sorry, Doug. All right. Another question here. Would GLT be happy to accept an information theoretic paper devoted to the optical fiber channel? Of course. Of course. Very good question. And the cool thing about photonics in general is its breadth, right? I mean, photonics covers, and that's, by the way, something that attracts me to the field tremendously, is that photonics covers everything from basic physics, quantum physics, all the way to communications engineering, or even forward error correction codes, information theory. A very wide spectrum of disciplines that photonics covers, and information theory is an important one. And recently there have been a lot of information theoretic papers devoted to the optical fiber channel, and in fact one of them is among the highest cited GLT papers ever. I think it ranks on number 3 or so. So yes, by all means, if you have an information theoretic paper, then please submit it to GLT, but it has to have to do with optical fiber communications or guided wave optical communications in general. It doesn't have to be necessarily fiber. It could also be on an integrated chip. There is also information theory on waveguides on a chip that could be developed. So it's not just fiber, it's guided wave technology. Information theory, that's for the free space channel. We also take that to some extent. but it really has to have this optical connection as well. So yes, the answer is please do submit these papers. Oh, another question. What is the JLT Best Paper Award? Very good question. That is a new award that we just instantiated this year, and it was presented at OFC, very appropriately, again, considering the tight connection between OFC and JLT. And the JLT Best Paper Award in 2014 honored the best papers published in 2011. So 3 years back. So we gave the papers some room, but not an infinite room, to accumulate statistics, to accumulate downloads, citations, reputation. We didn't just go by pure citation or download statistics. We really looked through each and every single paper published in JLT in 2011 and assessed it based on its merit, not just based on any statistics, but just looking at the paper, reading, not carefully, of course, in detail. You can't read 500-600 papers in detail and to make a decision, but we read through them in a reasonable amount, with a reasonable amount of effort. We looked at all the download statistics, and there were 2 papers that we finally selected, and one of them is on the performance of Nyquist WDM super channels by Gabriella Bosco from Politecnico di Torino, and the other one is on elastic bandwidth allocation in flexible OFDM networks by Christodopoulos from Greece, EIT. So two papers here that got honored, that got awarded the Best Paper Award at OFC, and we'll have that award with all likelihood next year again, honoring the best paper published in 2012, or the best papers published in 2012. Of course, best is always leaves room to some subjectiveness. So if you didn't get the Best Paper Award and you think your paper was the best, then I apologize, and we should not take awards for the most important thing. They are a nice recognition, but they are not. If you don't receive an award, it doesn't mean you're a bad person or a bad author at all. Okay, another question. What do you consider as a hot topic regarding DSP algorithms for nonlinear compensation? Very good question. Of course, DSP in optics is very, very important these days, and there were some voices that say we shouldn't call it Optical Fiber Communications Conference anymore, but Electrical Fiber Communications Conference. And to some extent, these voices are right. They just reflect the notion that there is a lot of algorithmic work and a lot of classical digital signal processing entering optical communications. And the cool thing here, in contrast to wireless, is exactly the fiber nonlinearity compensation, because fiber nonlinearity is something that's very unique to the optical channel, something that you cannot find on the wireless interface, for example. So in that sense, DSP algorithms for nonlinear compensation are very important. And I guess the question is, which ones I consider very hot here? Those that are implementable. So if that answers the question, it's one thing to propose nonlinearity compensation algorithms that you can show in MATLAB with offline processing, and it's another thing to really implement them into an ASIC, which is what you need to do in such a system. So those that are implementable are of the most interest. One more question here, and I think that might be almost the last one. We have to close very soon. So if you have urgent questions, please shoot now. Do you have an internal feedback mechanism to evaluate reviewers by editors? So yes, we do. We have a method for associate editors to rate the reviewers, whether the review came in on time, whether the review was high quality, and also our staff knows the reviewers pretty well and knows those that are tardy. Unfortunately, the true absolute top experts in the field are typically overloaded with reviews. So you always have to strike a balance here, and that's, again, part of how we balance quality with speed. But we usually tend to put more weight on quality than we put on speed. Of course, we tried our best to really cut down paper response times, and with 38 days we are not that bad, I think. but quality comes first. And we do assess our reviewers, and those reviewers that are really bad, they won't get asked anytime soon. But if you want to be a reviewer with GLT, please just send me an email, and that also happens all the time. People volunteer to review for GLT, and I will certainly send your email together with your CV. If you could attach a CV with publications list, so we know which fields you are interested in reviewing. Just send that to me or to our staff, to Doug Hargis or Lisa Materia, and we will distribute them to the correct associate editors that will then ask you to review papers. I think 2 more quick questions coming in. One of them is very technical, which I won't address right now, but if you want the question OFDM, if you want to send me an email, I think we should take that offline, because that might be a longer technical discussion. There's one more. What is the GLT policy about papers published on arXiv? Let me address that as the final question for today. So there are online repositories like arXiv, and there are others as well, where authors can just upload their papers, and then they are on there. But and they can be viewed and also referenced by anybody. So in general, GLT does not, it's a copyright issue, right? The GLT needs to have the copyright of a certain paper. So the general policy is then when you have something on arXiv and you publish the exact same thing again in GLT, this of course causes some concern, but there are general rules that you can then, once your GLT paper is accepted, put the exact same paper without the copy editing onto arXiv, and then it's fine as long as the arXiv paper references the GLT paper and points to that GLT paper, and as long as the copyrights are not violated, then it is okay. Of course, if you can avoid that, it's always better, but it is legally it's okay, and there are certain rules, and if you are one of the authors who publishes on arXiv and then later in GLT, you can contact me and I can give you the exact rules, which I also don't have all memorized at this point, but it boils down to, once the GLT paper is accepted, you need to put the non-copy edited version, so your final files that you would send to IEEE, but not the ones that IEEE would typeset. So the ones that you would send to IEEE, you need to put those on our arXiv, replace your arXiv manuscript with those, and then reference the GLT paper on your arXiv webpage. Okay, I think with this, one final thing I really, because that's a question very close to my heart. Can someone recommend himself or herself to be a reviewer? Yes, by all means. As a reviewer, please send me an email with your CV and publication list, and just say, I would really like to review for GLT. Can you please help me do that? And I will certainly forward your information to the appropriate associate editors, and then you will get to review papers in GLT as appropriate. All right. So with that, I invite you all to send me email if you have any further questions. You can find my email at the various GLT websites, and I'm open for any suggestions, comments, questions, whatever is on your mind. Please feel free to contact me. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Thanks a lot for contributing, for discussing, for listening, and have a nice day, a nice evening, and good night. Bye-bye.